Get ready for your daily dose of marketing strategies and tactics from entrepreneurs with the guile and experience to help you find success in any marketing capacity. You're listening to Marketing School with your instructors, Neil Patel and Eric Su.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Marketing School. I'm Eric Su.
And I'm Neil Patel.
And today we're going to talk about 7 steps for running a successful webinar. So webinars, it's no secret, they are a tool that a lot of direct response marketers use. They're highly converting, people that have courses for $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 plus, or even masterminds. They do use webinars to try to convert people, and there's also enterprise companies that use a lot of webinars as well to try to get people indoctrinated, to try to drive them to the next step. Because the fact of the matter is, when you go into a webinar, you're spending 45 minutes, an hour or so educating them on something, you're building a relationship with them, and then you're spending another 20 minutes to 30 minutes closing them on the next step. So webinars are great for that. I think the first thing I would say around running a successful webinar is email reminders. So a lot of people forget to, when you sign up for something, there's so much stuff going on every single day, right? You have social media, you have email, you have people, texting you, things like that. It's easy to get distracted. So just because someone registered for it doesn't mean they're necessarily going to remember. So you can set email reminders for people ahead of time. You can do it 3 days before, and I like to do it, you can do it 1 day before, and then I also like doing it an hour before and when it's starting. You don't have to do it to that extent. You can try some kind of variation for that. So that is step number 1.
Another thing to leverage with webinars is make sure that you have an option where someone can register and watch for a webinar within the next 15 minutes. This only works if you're doing recorded webinars, or even if you're doing a live webinar, then the next time you can end up doing a recorded version, right? And with the recorded version, because you just take the live one and put it on repeat, you let people register within 15-minute slots. So in which they don't just go to a webinar page and they can click play. It's more so they have to register and then put in their details, and then it starts every 15 minutes. So like 11 o'clock, 11:15, 11:30, 11:45, 12 o'clock, etc. And what you'll find is, because people are waiting a bit but not too long, they're much more likely to attend and pay attention. Your attendance rate should go well above 60%.
What's a good tool for that, Neil?
I use EverWebinar for that.
Yep, EverWebinar is great. So number 3, using paid traffic is good. I think this is a reason why a lot of people like to use webinars, because they haven't built an audience yet. And in a lot of cases, you can use paid traffic to drive people to a webinar. And that way, again, mentioned earlier, webinars are a great way to build relationships with people. But, use paid traffic. Create some lookalike audiences off the, people that have converted, in the past, or people that have attended your webinar. And then just go from there. And then you can even use paid traffic to set reminders too for people that have registered but not attended. Then you can market to those people differently. So you can get sophisticated with paid traffic, but use that to kind of amplify what you're doing when it comes to webinars. And one other caveat I would add, just backing up a second to the repeating webinars, ideally in many cases you would test out the webinar if you can and see how well it converts before you switch it over to a repeating webinar. And in some cases, like Neil, he spends a lot of time to record ahead of time, and it's a high value production. But in some cases, or in a lot of cases where you're just doing like a PowerPoint, well, then you might want to try do a few takes first, see how well it converts, and then switch it to the repeating webinar funnel.
Number 4, use a software program called TurboDial. It can connect with a lot of webinar software solutions out there, or marketing automation more so. So we connect ours with Infusionsoft. And for all the people who watch the webinar, see the point where we're pitching products, services, or capturing a lead if you're in B2B, B2C, or pitching a product more so. What TurboDial does is, for all the people that don't take action, like if they click the link but they don't buy, or if they saw the call to action, like fill out a form field, but they don't do anything or even click, TurboDial will text them the next day. You can program it to say whatever, but I would recommend just texting them their first name ? So for example, if Eric attended my webinar, he saw the buy button, didn't buy, the next day he would get a text message that says Eric ? He'll most naturally respond with, who's this? Then the person will respond with like, hey, this is Sam from Neil Patel's team. Neil saw that you watched the webinar. He wanted me to follow up with you to see if you had any questions, yada, yada, yada. And what you'll notice is, just through texting, you'll get additional like 5 to 10% increase in sales.
Number 5. So this is kind of building on what Neil just mentioned, or this connects with what Neil just mentioned. You want to make sure you have some kind of marketing automation set up where you can market people based on what they did on your webinar. So not only can you do it with paid traffic, but you can also do it with tools like Infusionsoft. That's really well known for tagging people, moving people around. You can also, to an extent, do that with Drip, but I would say Infusionsoft is probably more powerful for this. And Neil, I think you could speak better to this because you use Infusionsoft and you live and breathe this, right?
Yep, exactly. And number 6, no matter if you're doing a live webinar or recorded webinar, the biggest thing you have to keep in mind is if people don't show up, you won't get any sales or conversions. Doesn't matter if you're in the B2B or B2C space. Show up means more likelihood of someone buying or trusting your brand or wanting to buy your product, service, whatever it may be. So integrate whatever webinar software you're using with Twilio, and you can then send a text reminder. So when anyone registers for a webinar, let's say if the webinar starts a week from now or a day from now, an hour or 30 minutes before the webinar, you can send them a text message like, hey, Eric, just want to remind you, my webinar is starting in 30 minutes. Go here to sign on. Cheers, Neil, or something like that, right? But it's a really effective approach to getting more people to attend your webinar. It's simple. We have thousands and thousands of people on our webinar, and our Twilio integration doesn't cost us more than a few $100s a month.
Love it. And then the last thing I want to cap it off with is, this seems like a very duh statement, but you want to focus on value. I've seen webinars in the past where they will basically provide maybe 5 or 10 minutes of value and then focus 30 to 40 minutes on pitching. You want to make sure your value, it's more tilted towards adding value to the individual first, because there's a lot of people out there that are just going to try to make a quick buck. That's not how it works. If you're going to take people's time, their valuable time, literally like you're cutting off their day for 45 minutes to an hour, or even longer than that, you have to consider like how you're affecting them and what you're actually doing for them. So Russell Brunson, he has a book called .com Secrets. He talks about funnels all the time. He uses webinars all the time. He has this video, and I think he has a form as well called the perfect webinar sequence. Now, I'm not saying you need to follow it to a T, because for some brands, it doesn't make sense to talk like the way he does. For most people, I would say it doesn't, but you want to modify the elements that you like and make it into your own. But he has a lot of elements that you can pull in there, and he's tested this to death. He does webinars a ton, so I would recommend taking a look at that. Once again, it's called the perfect webinar sequence. So Neil, anything else to add before we hop off?
That's it.
All right, that's it for today's episode. Let us know what you think. We'll see you tomorrow.
This session of Marketing School has come to a close. Be sure to subscribe for more daily marketing strategies and tactics to help you find the success you've always dreamed of. And don't forget to rate and review so we can continue to bring you the best daily content possible. We'll see you in class tomorrow, right here on Marketing School.